It was a difficult time in the Jak community when the beautiful new route dropped for Jak 3 80%. It was an entirely new way of completing the game that revolved around beelining it to the temple as fast as possible, by going through the desert entirely on foot. The activity for the category quickly went dry as the desert itself, as almost nobody was willing to learn or play the new route. As a result, a new category was looking to take 80%'s place, and it seemed like no out of bounds, or simply no oob, was the one to rear its head. It was a category that had seen a little bit of experimentation after Temple Skip was found, but never managed to stick around for long until the beautiful new route took over 80%. As soon as people saw the gameplay you had to do in the now new route, demands for a legacy category skyrocketed. The main reason no oob became the category of choice for many was because people who formerly ran Jak 3 heavily favored the old 80% route that was used back when the game was between 41 and 38 minutes long. You went through some of the best missions in the game, it featured great variety with multiple vehicles, jetboarding and combat, and something about that 40-minute mark really felt like a good length for a speedrun. No oob mainly came to prominence because it very closely resembled this old route, but of course with the restriction of not going out of bounds. So not everything was the same. The way we defined out of bounds was... to be honest, nobody really had a clear definition for what was and wasn't out of bounds back during the category's inception. People were just so desperate for a legacy category that this gray area was something people were willing to overlook. The definition for what was and wasn't out of bounds would be unclear for quite some time too, ultimately spawning this infamous clip of the Jak community having a heated discussion about it in person. On the beach of all places?
This is fucking hilarious. We're on the beach, and these guys are fucking, we're discussing what is and isn't out of bounds in Jak 3.
Yeah, but if it doesn't have collision, if I'm above a surface that doesn't have collision.
You guys are fucking nerds, go out on the beach.
Right, they started this, okay?
What the fuck?
It's like a 5v1 right now. I'm taking them all.
Yeah, so the rules were unclear and Qatar was on a mission to set the record straight. He wanted to create clear definitions once and for all, which we would get in the form of this 9-page long no oob rule set proposition that he created in 2022. A well-written document that finally cleared up all the gray areas regarding the term out of bounds. But he keeps using this stupid PS3 Jak 1 render for literally all his demonstrations. God, I hate this picture of Jak. With the rules now set in stone, let's dig into the differences between the old 38-minute route and the new no oob route. The first question mark for no oob was going to be cave skip and whether or not it should be allowed. One of the main rules stated in the document is that Jak is not allowed to be directly over any form of void space. Even though Jak is going through a wall during cave skip, he is above ground and has no direct access to the void. This is also the intended way into the cave, regardless of whether or not the egg wall is in your way. By our definition, this was definitely in bounds, so we allowed it. The first visit to the temple created the first major change with this new category. Both Lapagne's out of bounds at the top of the temple walls and Tom Jack's pillar clip were both not allowed in no oob, as there's no way to access the inner part of the temple without being over the void. This meant that the only way into the hallway behind the sentry was to complete the volcano, which introduced 3 new missions to the category. The first being Climb Monk Temple Tower, which is exactly what it sounds like. A big ascent from the bottom of the temple to the top, that added some cool platforming to the run. The second mission is Glide to Volcano, a pseudo autoscroller where you have to fly through rings to gain speed that lasts around 2 minutes. It's a pretty laid-back mission overall, without any big challenges. It's got a good song to go with it, and it's a good spot to read some chat if you're streaming the game. The last mission is Find Satellite in Volcano, one of the longest missions in the game casually, where you have to platform and fight your way through the level, with a couple of Daxter sections sprinkled in too. On the second visit to the temple, runners now had to collect the tokens normally again, since token skip was out of bounds. Not a big loss though, more jetboarding is always welcome. When the jetboard proxy was discovered to get into Palace Ruins early, it made the level significantly easier, as it bypassed the starting trigger for the mission, which is what needs to be hit to load in all of the enemies. This was made even easier with the hover glitch, and runners could focus purely on jetboarding without worrying about the metalheads. These two methods, however, are both out of bounds, and we now had to resort back to walking through the tunnel for no oob. This effectively put the whole level back on hard mode, as the enemies were back in full force. Not something we've seen since the Lapagna days. Lastly, Dark Ship now had to be completed in bounds. The height exploits like the infinite flight glitch and the hover glitch had been used to skip straight to the escape sequence ever since Tom Jack's segmented run back in 2011. But now runners were faced with a new challenge, in what felt like a brand new level. All of the old missions we knew and loved were back with a vengeance. With the creation of No Oob, runners, new and old, would partake in completing their first run. It would take some time to optimize, of course, but Yankee, Unreal, and I would lay the groundwork with some freebie records in the mid to low 50s. These runs were littered with mistakes, but it was mostly to test out if the category had potential, and to get some runs on the leaderboards. If you ask me though, I would say the real launch day of the category happened on June 23rd, 2015. An eventful summer day where a no out of bounds race would take place between Goofy, Dex, Bloppy, Andy Gaming, and myself, which put some more spotlight on the category and was just an overall good time with the boys. I had a clear lead on the competition heading into the temple, and I was about to show off some new shortcuts for the climb. On the lower floor, I first jumped into a torch and took damage, which gave me a few seconds of invincibility that I used to stand inside the fire. I then quickly performed a concussor high jump to a platform above me, skipping a decent chunk of the overall platforming. On the upper floor, I did this nifty shortcut. After completing the glider mission, I entered the volcano. Again, it's supposed to be several minutes long when played casually. Conveniently though, the developers put the path that you use when you're supposed to leave the level just in reach for a concussor high jump, skipping pretty much the entire level. Reaching the ledge was actually found all the way back in Lapagne's webcammed 122 segmented run, except he got up there using a leaper that you can catch a bit further into the level. After making the jump, you have to navigate up the long slope and finesse your way over to the end of the level from the back. Take my word for it, this part is very finicky.
Every time.
Yeah, so far I haven't been in a no race where nobody has died on the volcano.
It's nearly me.
It wasn't me.
After leaving the volcano through the portal, I skipped the need of grabbing invisibility to get past the sentry. Despite not using the power-up, the detour to the volcano is still required, as the door leading into the main temple area won't open unless you're on the correct mission. A small strategy change took place in EcoMine since the proxy was considered out of bounds as well, as you go over several void areas using the trick. Luckily, the hover glitch was a pretty good substitute and actually turned out to be faster when done optimally. You would hover from the start of the level to the area where the old magic shot strategy took place during Bomb Train. Then after landing, a bit of jetboarding is left before reaching the elevator to the underground section. At this point, I was really far ahead in the race, but I was coming up to Dark Ship. Playing the level completely in bounds was really awkward. The way you're intended to get through the level is to swap back and forth between defeating enemies to open a door and performing various platforming challenges, such as an ice slide, swinging on poles, using the lightjack wings, etc. The first room was taken care of with the beam reflexor. That has nearly always been the case throughout time. The second room was taken care of with the gyro burster and the needle laser, two really strong weapons for mass clearing. In the big room, I played it very safe. I cleared all the enemies and used a risk-free hover to get to the end. I just went really high up and steered my way to the door with the wave concussor. In the third and final room, you have to kill 4 Darkmakers that spawn on the ground to open the door leading down to the escape sequence. The most ideal weapon in this scenario is the Gyro Burster, but since I was out of ammo, I resorted to the Plasmite RPG. After your run-of-the-mill final boss, I would win the race and set a new record at 48:07 after retiming. A decent showcase for the category, but there was definitely a lot of work left. Concluding this race, No Oob would stagnate in activity for about a month or two, but would be revived again in November 2015, as the Jack community woke up to some unexpected news. You see, a few months back, Bob and I had decided to submit a Jack 3 No Oob race to the American speedrunning event Awesome Games Done Quick 2016. Jack 3 had seen a lot of success in Europe at ESA, with me doing any % in 2013 and 2014, and Raccoon and I swapping the controller back and forth for an all missions run in 2015. These runs were watched by thousands of viewers from across the world, which helped expose the game in a bigger light. But AGDQ was the mecca of speedrunning. The viewership at the event easily reached as much as 100,000 plus live viewers. Back then, it was every runner's dream to play a GDQ, but your chances of getting in as a runner were slim. Thousands of game submissions would pour in, and with only so many games to fit in their schedule, the Jack community kept their hopes up, but we were ready to see the game rejected. But when Bob and I woke up on that fateful November morning, we couldn't believe our eyes. We had gotten accepted at a primetime slot at 3 PM on January 9th. Not only that, PlayStation was seeing representation, with Ratchet 3, Crash 1, and Spyro 1 all surrounding our run in an Insomniac Naughty Dog block. Throughout November and December of 2015, Bob and I worked hard on optimizing No Oob to make it a great showcase at AGDQ. The months would turn out to be incredibly active, as the two of us streamed attempts several times a week, and traded the world record back and forth. I can almost guarantee you that Bob got more than 3 world records around this time. But the bad news is that there's no video proof. The good news is that this is the last time in this series where significant proof is missing. In mid-December, Bob and I were neck and neck at the low 45 mark. I was sitting on 45.09 and Bob with the record at 45.03. We had pushed the category down purely from tighter execution, and it would all culminate with the next minute barrier. It was now a race to the 44. On December 24th, 2015, I would enter the temple 14 seconds ahead, and extend my lead further with a great climb. I even skipped grabbing the final set of poles by concussor high jumping into a ceiling that gave me a grounded standpoint for a brief moment. This enabled me to jump once more to make it to the upper ledge. I would drop my lead slightly heading into tokens, but my jetboarding at this time was noticeably improving, utilizing some flashy turnarounds and the hover glitch to save a bit of time over scaling the ramps. In Eco Mine, I started hovering from a slightly riskier position instead of going over to the right. Since you can't turn in the air with the hover glitch, it's important to have great control over the angle you choose to initiate the hover at. Go too far left and you'll bonk into this rock wall, and go too far right, you won't be able to reach the ledge. In BTR, I still found first barrier skip to be just too risky, so I took the towers down normally. But besides that, I was starting to get a solid handle on the level now. And when I got to the end, that was the best BTR I've ever had. Turning off the monitor. Alright, let's do it. Definitely, oh shit. Kill him, okay. Sloppy, pretty sloppy. Not even above 4 minutes. My average is like 405, 404, so that was quite below average, but it's okay. We can mid 44 with this, and that's what matters. Okay, that is 8 seconds. That's okay, I guess. I lost some time. But there it is. Alright, that's quite a bit better. It had its mistakes, but 44.41 was a time that I was content enough going to GDQ with. Bob would also break into the 44s with a run 1 second slower than mine. With our PBs being this close, the race at GDQ was going to be sick. In early January of 2016, I packed my suitcase and left from Denmark to the United States at 19 years old. And before we knew it, it was Jak 3's time to shine.
I think we are good. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Alright, so this is satellite, this is RNG. That's almost all there is to say about it. It's heavily dependent on how many doubles you get, as well as pairs.
If you get 2 symbols in the same ring, you get 6 points, and you just hope to get as many of them as possible. And sometimes it's actually that bad that in like real runs you would have to reset over them.
Right.
How many did you get?
I got 4.
I think I got 4 too. So I'm actually pretty happy we got the exact same RNG in the race.
Right, yeah.
It's really nice. No one gets a lead unfairly.
Despite the both of us getting identical RNG on Satellite, Bob would widen his lead over the course of the next few missions. Coming out of Destroy Eggs, he would find himself in the driver's seat by 15 seconds. But the temple climb would be the great equalizer.
We just gained some pretty crazy distance. Shooting it.
Get wrecked, Bob.
Dude, we are neck and neck. Look at that. Oh, dude, you're like frames ahead of me. I had to take it safe there.
Alright, so
That's
basically what just happened.
Oh, got it.
Nice.
Yes. Sorry, you go ahead, Jeff.
It's all good.
Yo, Ricky and Bob, hope you guys are having fun and best of luck with the race. Sub dear Bish.
I had pulled the lead back with a better temple and Ashlyn, now going into the mid-game 28 seconds ahead. This is where Bob and I would get to show off the real meat of the run.
Like, Palace Ruin can just turn really bad really fast. If you end up getting hit once, it kind of just train wrecks.
It's kind of like this whole run as well, or no out of bounds. It just
Nice.
It's a pretty
Oh my
intense-
god.
Oh, nice, dude. Yeah, that hover is really hard.
My Palace Ruins would go very smoothly, putting me over a minute ahead in the race. Since Bob was quite far behind, he would begin to showcase some more difficult strategies that I was too scared to do.
I'm also about to do some stuff here. I'll let you get it first, though. Oh, get in there. Get in there. Nice. There you go. Good job, Bob. Oh, dude.
Yeah, that's classic BTR.
Oh my god, what are you doing? No, don't roll off the ledge.
Classic BTR, you just keep flipping. Oh, nice.
So there we go. Fast cycle.
Nice.
Sweet. And time.
Should I try 360 no scope?
If you
It's
want.
very unlikely that I get it.
Nah, you shouldn't.
I'm doing it.
You doing it? Oh.
I've gotten it once ever.
Oh,
Yeah,
time.
Good race.
Good race.
47.04.
All right.
That was once the world record.
Yeah, it was.
A long time ago.
The race overall was a huge success. Honestly, I gave zero fucks about winning. It was never about who could beat the other player on that stage. All that mattered to me was showcasing a beloved PS2 classic to a new audience that had never seen the speedrun. We even got to showcase some cool glitches afterwards, like the credit soft lock and the super fast hoverbike glitch.
Let's keep going.
That's a pretty good one.
There we go. Game crashed.
Something else that... Oh,
Sound
I'm going
speaker.
wrong. I won't catch up to it.
Okay, so
Alright guys, that's Jack 3.
Yeah.
No out of bounds.
hope you enjoyed.
AGDQ 2016 raised over $1.2 million for the Prevent Cancer Foundation, and I feel proud to have played a small role in that alongside Bob. At the time of the showcase, Jack 3 was the most viewed game on Twitch, sitting at number 1 atop the games directory on Twitch, even beating out League of Legends. It might have only been for just a brief hour in time, but at one point, an entire website was conquered by the Jack community. I look back fondly on the time I spent at AGDQ 2016. I was on a completely new continent, experiencing a completely different culture. It was also a great time hanging out with the American members of the Jack community, especially Bob, who was a huge motivation for me to continue to push myself. When we hung out, it seemed like it was all laughter. They took me to Wendy's for the first time, and Bob proceeded to frame one spill coffee on himself. Instead of helping a man who probably just scorched his balls, I thought of the great idea of recording the incident. What a great friend I was.
Are you okay?
I'm okay, just my pride.
Nah, but seriously, Bob really was just such a down-to-earth guy the whole time. Never judgmental, always laid back. Despite the two of us being from two completely different parts of the world, we bonded over this PS2 game from 2004. When I left, I was hoping it wouldn't be the last time I would see him, or anyone else I met there for that matter. The week kinda just flew by so fast. I made some really great memories with everyone there. I also remember meeting Zem for the first time and commentating his Ratchet 3 run. I speedran Kingdom Hearts a lot, and hanging out with people from that community was very memorable too. The trip had such an impression on me that I ended up making a 3-hour-long recap stream just showing off all the pictures and videos I took and rewatching the Jak 3 run in its entirety. As much fun as I had, I knew sooner or later I had to get back to the grind. And I'm sure Bob was thinking the same thing. For as many hours as we had poured into the game, no Oob would feel like unfinished business if we didn't at least try to push it to a 43. We knew it was possible with even cleaner execution, and we were willing to put in the effort because the game was fun again. The AGDQ race no Oob combo had sparked a new era for Jak 3 in terms of motivation and interest. It was the perfect recipe for people to start playing again, and the leaderboard for the category was starting to fill up more and more. We created no Oob as a more restrictive category by nature to prevent any massive sequence breaks, but this had the effect of it seeming like there was a bit of a hard limit on what kind of time was possible. Discovering a new skip to assist you in getting a 43-minute time was going to be far more unlikely now, as the major skips discovered in the past have almost all included some form of out of bounds. It seemed as if 43 was gonna come down to nothing but raw hours. This was about refining your driving, getting better RNG, and bettering your jetboarding. Plain and simple. Had we perhaps created a category that functions as an exact opposite to any percent, where nothing is found and the only way to lower the record is through repetitions? Only time could really tell, with the category so young and underdeveloped. And even when we find the answer, the question still remains. How low can the game really go? Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing or supporting me on Patreon. Take care, and I'll see you next time for Era 7.